I guess I don't have a lot of time. Really busy schedule today, but I thought I'd rack off some just kind of a ramble about anti-natalism and the arguments based around truth, right? This quest for truth based on a utilitarian argument of Benatar's asymmetry. And what I find I find the logic, the rigors of logic are generally compel. It seems they mentally, their objective is to mentally compel people to form fit to whatever the logical outcome is once they understand the logical argument itself. And this very notion of locking into a logical discourse, right? To state from an axiomatic or a base paradigm an argument, a claim, one must first make an equation, an is statement. This is this, therefore that, and that static equation, that isness, is already accepted in terms of it being non-dynamic, right? As an example of this, the first premise of Benatar's argument is that pain is bad, right? And that this lock on that that equation of is, to state that it is the case that pain is bad, overlooks the idea that pain may not always be bad, right? The next equation, pleasure is good. I don't know. A lot of, especially religious people, might assume that certain overt pleasures, right, or the gratification of pleasure is, or immediate satiation of pleasures is considered bad in terms of looking at a long-term dynamic interaction. When somebody might become too gluttonous, they might fall into the basic sins, and then, God forbid, Gary might call them fat if they become gluttonous long-term because they were satiating pleasures. Right. So what I'm getting at is this with the anti-natalist argument is its very premises are supposed to create a static truth, right? And I already disagree with that. Pain is not bad. Pleasure is not good. So right out of the gate, the two premises don't seem to work. The reason I say that isn't that I don't think that I react in the same utilitarian way as everybody else, but the maintenance of those ideas overshadows the idea of what it is we're calling pain and what it is we're calling good, what it is we're calling bad, right? In what manner are we calling those things? And so what I would say is pain is, right? I give is, it is what it is, I think, is the truest argument about the case of things. It is what it is. And then how about this? It's all good. It is all good, right? Let's monize the binaries, right? Is pain a type of pleasure, or is pleasure a type of pain? Is good a type of bad, or is bad a type of good? Well, what I like to suggest is that, well, let's monize it and say what it is what it is, meaning whatever our reality is in the end, whatever our truth is, whatever we state after all arguments, after everything is said and done, what is the case, right? And what isn't the case can be referenced in terms of lingual narratives or imagination. And so that being said, I'd like to just say pain is, pleasure is, right? And that both of these two are components to sentience. If you removed pain or pleasure or feeling from our experience, you would no longer be sentient. Right, even the reduction. I think it's equivalent to saying that the alphabet the English alphabet contains 26 letters, and let's say that we would like to get rid of or make certain that the uppercase L is removed. We're going to remove the uppercase L. We're going to make it a lowercase L. We're going to minimize the L because the L is equivalent to suffering, right? And then to say, when people, okay, and so with that being said, some of the statements like a non-existent being is never deprived, right? The Benatarian argument keeps referencing intransitives, things that don't exist. So the argument, a non-existent being can never be deprived, therefore X, Y, and Z. But a non-existent being can never not be deprived either. You can't even deprive non-existence from a non-existent being because you can't even point to it being an it besides being a lingual, a semantic, a symbol, right? And this is what I meant by there's an intransitive. It's the difference between it's the Benatarian argument pointing to what we would say is human potentiality is the same thing as pointing to pink unicorns, right? We can draw it, we can paint a picture of it, we can imagine it, we can say words that reference this supposed potentiality, but it's all a lingual or an imaginary non-existent. So what is imagination is not anything, right? Imagination, if you're imagining something and not remembering it, you're creating it. This is kind of interesting because this might move into Whitehead trying to say, well, imagination is real, right? And this insistence upon nothing being real or imagination being real, these are all like trying to include the not existence, the lingual saying, the lingual reference, the difference between sign and signified, right? An intransitive has no signified. It is like saying I am aware, or I am coming, or I have arrived, right? And so to point to this non-existent thing and to say it cannot be deprived, well, it cannot also be not deprived. So right out of the gate, pain is not bad, right? In any necessary long-term truth, we don't have to linger on that idea, and at any given point to suggest that whatever my experience is, whatever it is I say my sentient experience is, to sum it up and lay a lingual, a signified, whatever that signified is, whatever adjective it is, upon there, and suggest that adjective, right, whatever the description is, sucks, pain, pleasure, love, gooey, blah, 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 to then equate that to a moral consideration is like this is something that we inherit. This is an inherited lingual patterning that comes along with reasonability, and reasonability is something that's found only within what I'll say is the history of modern Western, Occidental, Semitic, or Indo-European Oriental thoughts. But you have the Piraha that don't have rationability, they don't have historicity socially, and they don't have counting, right? Because they don't have counting, they don't have negative numbers, right? They can't present an absence or debt. They're still speaking language, right? And so this notion of a potentiality being equated to a negative or a debt, right? Just on the very surface of it is something that we've learned to do, right? It's part of like an absenting of the idea of deprivation is a notion of taking away something, right? And so if I say, well, we're going to take away a quanta from another quanta. We're going to take away negative 2 from negative 2, and we'll get a 0, right? Or sorry, we'll get a negative 4 take away plus. Yeah, we'll get a 0. Is kind of it's the same thing as saying, well, we have this non-existent, non-referent potentiality that we want to assign a signified to, even though it's an abuse of an intransitive, right? Because there is no thing, there is no, unless you're religious and you believe in a pre-existing, pre-floating soul that you are pointing to, that is the signified, that is the referent of saying there is this me, or there is this thing that is the future potential baby that is foregone, right? That very statement, you can only reference what is. Language allows us to reference what is not. But if we're going to talk about utility, right, a real utilitarian argument, you can only reference what is. And so only when the sentience has begun, right, only when the pain-pleasure duality, pain, pleasure, and all other emotions are all combined into one thing which defines sentience. You can't impose suffering onto sentience because a constituent definition of sentience includes pain, right? So what we do is we have these people that are splitting hairs saying, well, I'd like to have the L quit imposing itself upon the alphabet. Let's get rid of that L. Well, then as soon as you do that, you cease to have the English alphabet, right? So the very premises are a little bit off here. Now, the absence of pain is good, even if that good is not enjoyed by anyone, is one of the Bettentarian premises. So saying the absence of pain is good, even if the absence is not enjoyed by anyone. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Okay, I have to let that skip. But I only have a few more minutes, so let me see how to state this. Yeah, just think of the phrase, you cannot deprive a non-existent thing, right? You can also not deprive a non-existent thing. You can only deprive or not deprive an existent thing. Therefore, the signified must have a demonstrable. The signifier must have a demonstrable signified. The intransitive, right, is falsified to become a transitive, and there is no transitive, right? And so we keep calling this a potentiality, a potential future human, which is foregone. That whole statement is imaginary. It makes rational sense, but it does not have an isness, unless you're spiritual, that you are pointing to, right? It falls in line with biological narratives. This is why biology and logic, the notion between natural language and logical language, are mixed, right? And so Benatar is no different. He's going to mix moral language with utilitarian language, right? Pain is good, pleasure is good. Well, in fact, I'll just say, no, pain is, and pleasure is, in whatever the situation that you're in, no matter how long you want to sum up whatever this static frame is, no matter how you want to outline it, it is what it is. Now, call me a hippie, call me the dude, right? But it's all good. Meaning, even if it's bad, it's all good. Why would I say it's all good? I'm just trying to monize the binary between good and bad, right? So, pain is good. Pleasure is good, right? Suffering is, right? It is what it is, right? So if it's not good, then let's just make it an intransitive and say pain is, suffering is, right? Because these are elements to the sentience already. I don't know. How about this as a starter piece, and I'll work on the argument.